There is a voice that speaks loudest when nothing is being said. It answers questions you haven't yet learned to ask. Most people spend their entire lives shouting into the universe, demanding answers, begging for signs, and they wonder why heaven seems silent. But here's what they don't understand. God doesn't respond to noise. The infinite intelligence within you only speaks in the language of stillness. Tonight, I'm going to show you how to stop talking long enough to hear the answer that's been waiting for you all along. The silence isn't empty, it's full. And it knows your name. I want you to think about something with me for a moment. When was the last time you sat in complete silence? Not the silence of sleep, not the distracted quiet while scrolling through your phone, but true, intentional, conscious silence. For most of us, it's been years, maybe decades. We've forgotten what it feels like. We've been taught that silence is awkward, that it needs to be filled, that if we're not speaking or planning or consuming or producing, we're wasting time. But what if I told you that in avoiding silence, you've been avoiding the very thing that could transform your entire life? You see, there's a reason you're here tonight. You feel it, don't you? That sense that something's missing. You've been praying, affirming, visualizing, reading, learning, trying. You've done everything the books told you to do. You've followed the steps. You've claimed your blessings. You've spoken your desires into existence. And yet, something still feels uncertain. You still wake up wondering if you're on the right path. You still second-guess your decisions. You still feel like you're searching for something you can't quite name. Here's what I know to be true, and I say this with all the love in my heart. You're exhausted. Not just physically tired, though you might be that too. You're exhausted from the performance of spirituality. You're tired of trying to manifest harder, pray better, think more positively. You're worn out from the endless seeking, the constant question of whether you're doing it right. And somewhere deep down, beneath all the techniques and methods and affirmations, you've started to wonder if maybe you're just not spiritual enough, not worthy enough, not connected enough to hear the voice of God. But that's not the truth. The truth is so much simpler and so much more beautiful than you've been led to believe. The truth is this: the divine doesn't communicate through effort. It communicates through receptivity. The silence isn't a void to fill with more words. It's a presence to enter with empty hands. What you're about to learn tonight is the difference between demanding answers and becoming the answer. This isn't about praying harder. This isn't about believing more intensely. This is about something far more radical and far more natural. This is about learning to stop, to listen, and to trust that the intelligence within you, the same intelligence that beats your heart, that heals your wounds, that dreams your dreams while you sleep, knows exactly what you need and is trying to tell you every single day. But you can't hear it. Not because it's not speaking, but because you're too loud. And I don't mean that as a criticism. I mean it as an invitation to something quieter, something deeper, something infinitely more powerful than anything you've been taught about how God works in your life. Most spiritual teaching tells you to speak your truth, to claim your blessing, to declare your desires, and there's a time and place for that. But what if I told you that the real power, the real transformation, the real connection you're searching for, comes from doing the exact opposite? What if the secret isn't in speaking at all, but in shutting up and listening? What if your problem isn't that you lack faith, but that you lack silence? What if you've been drowning out the answer with the question? This is the reframe that changes everything. You're not broken. You're not disconnected. You're not spiritually deficient. You're just overcomplicated. You've been given 1,000 techniques, when what you needed was one truth. Be still. Be present. Be receptive. And in that receptivity, in that holy, terrifying, beautiful silence, the voice of God, the voice of infinite intelligence, the voice of your own subconscious wisdom will speak. Not in words, necessarily. Not in lightning bolts or burning bushes, but in knowing, in feeling, in sudden clarity that arrives without announcement. Tonight, you're going to learn how to access that voice. Not through complicated rituals or religious dogma, but through the simple, profound practice of speaking to the silence and letting it answer. And when you learn this, when you truly understand how this works, you'll never feel lost again. You'll never wonder if you're alone, because you'll know not believe, not hope, but know that you are always being guided, always being spoken to, always being loved by a power that exists not outside you but within you. So let me ask you directly, are you ready to stop performing? Are you ready to release the exhausting effort of trying to get God's attention? Are you ready to discover that the attention was always there, the guidance was always present, and the only thing you needed to do was get quiet enough to notice it? If your answer is yes, even a tentative yes, even a hopeful maybe, then stay with me. Because what we're about to explore together isn't just information, it's transformation. It's permission. It's the end of striving and the beginning of receiving. And it starts with understanding something that most people never learn. The silence is not the absence of God. The silence is the presence of God, waiting for you to stop performing long enough to receive. Now, let me tell you a story. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine you inherited an old radio from someone you loved deeply, maybe a grandparent, maybe a teacher, maybe a friend who changed your life. And when they gave it to you, they told you something important. They said, this radio only picks up one station. Just one. But that station plays the most beautiful, useful guidance you'll ever hear. It will tell you what you need to know exactly when you need to know it. It will comfort you when you're afraid. It will direct you when you're lost. It will remind you who you are when you forget. So you take this radio home. You're excited. You're ready to hear this miraculous station. You plug it in, you turn it on, and all you hear is static. Just noise. Just crackling. Empty, frustrating static. So you think maybe something's wrong. Maybe the radio is broken. Maybe the person who gave it to you was mistaken, so you try everything. You shake the radio. You move it to different rooms. You adjust the antenna. You unplug it and plug it back in. You even yell at it a little bit, demanding that it work, insisting that you deserve to hear this station you were promised. But nothing changes. Just static. Just noise. And eventually, you start to feel betrayed. You start to think maybe the whole thing was a lie. Maybe there is no special station. Maybe you were fooled. So you put the radio in a closet, and you go back to your regular life, telling yourself it doesn't matter anyway, you don't need guidance, you'll figure it out on your own. But then one day, someone comes to visit, someone who understands radios, and they see this beautiful old radio in your closet and they ask about it. So you tell them the story. You tell them about the promise, the disappointment, the static, and they look at you with such kindness and they say, "Can I show you something?" They take the radio out, they plug it in, and before they turn it on, they do something you never thought to do. They go around your house and they turn everything else off. The television that's been playing in the background, the phone that's been ringing and buzzing, the computer with 17 tabs open, the fan that's been humming, all the noise you didn't even realize was there because you'd become so used to it. They turn it all off. And then, in the sudden silence, they turn on the radio. And there it is, clear as day, beautiful as morning. The station. It was broadcasting the entire time. The signal never stopped. The guidance was always there. But you couldn't hear it. Not because the radio was broken. Not because you weren't worthy. But because you had 17 other devices blaring around you. And you were shouting over all of it, demanding the radio prove itself to you. The silence isn't the absence of signal. The silence is you finally turning everything else off. Your subconscious mind is that radio. The infinite intelligence, the voice of God, whatever name you want to give to the creative power of the universe, is the station. It never stops broadcasting. It's always transmitting wisdom, guidance, love, direction, always. Every single moment of your life. But you've got to create the conditions to hear it. And those conditions are not found in more effort. They're not found in better techniques or stronger faith or more spiritual practice. They're found in less noise. They're found in turning off the chaos. They're found in silence. Now I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but Joseph, I've tried meditation, I've tried sitting still, and my mind just races. I can't quiet my thoughts. And if that's you, I want you to hear this very clearly. That's completely normal. That's not failure. That's not proof that you can't do this. That's just what minds do. Minds think. That's their job. But here's what most people don't understand. You don't have to stop your thoughts to hear the voice. You just have to stop identifying with every thought as if it's the truth. Think of your thoughts like traffic passing by on a street. You're sitting on a bench, and cars are going past. Loud cars, quiet cars, fast cars, slow cars. You don't have to stop the traffic. You just have to stop running into the street and climbing into every car that passes. You just sit on the bench. You watch. You notice. And beneath the traffic, beneath the noise, there's something steady. There's the ground, there's the earth, there's the bench you're sitting on. That's the silence. That's the presence. That's what you're listening for. It's not the absence of thought. It's the awareness beneath the thought. It's the consciousness that notices the thinking. And when you can rest there, even for a few seconds, even in the gaps between thoughts, that's when you hear it. That's when the voice comes through. Not dramatic, not thunderous. Just quiet. Just certain. Just true. Let me tell you another story, and this one I've always loved because it captures this principle so perfectly. There's an old tale, not from scripture exactly, but from the mystics who lived in the desert, the ones who spent their lives in contemplation and silence. There was a man in a village who was known for finding water. In a place where water was scarce, where wells ran dry and people struggled, this man had a gift. Wherever he walked, he could point to a spot in the ground and say, "Dig here," and water would come. Every single time. People thought he was magic. They thought he had some special sight, some divine blessing that allowed him to see what others couldn't. They came to him with reverence and awe, asking him to teach them his secret, and he would always say the same thing: "I don't have a secret. I just listen." But they didn't understand. Listen to what? There's nothing to hear. The ground is silent. So finally, one day he tried to explain it in a way they might grasp. He said, "Water speaks. It hums beneath the earth. It has a frequency, a vibration. But you can't hear it when you're asking questions. You can't hear it when you're afraid of being wrong. You can't hear it when you're trying to prove something. You hear it when you trust that the earth will tell you what you need to know, and then you get quiet enough to let it." He would walk slowly across the land. He wouldn't be thinking about water. He wouldn't be analyzing the soil or looking for signs. He would just walk, and he would feel, and at some point he would feel a pull, a knowing, a certainty that had no logical explanation, and he would stop and he would say, "Here, dig here," and they would dig, and water would come. That's the secret voice of God. It's not mystical in the way we've romanticized mysticism. It's natural. It's as natural as water humming beneath the earth. Your subconscious mind knows things your conscious mind hasn't figured out yet. It's connected to an intelligence far beyond your intellect, far beyond your reasoning, far beyond your ability to calculate and control. And it speaks to you constantly, in impulses, in feelings, in sudden knowing that arrives without explanation, but you can only hear it when you stop interrogating it. You can only hear it when you stop demanding that it prove itself according to your timeline and your logic. You can only hear it when you trust enough to be still. So let me ask you something, and I want you to answer this honestly, just to yourself, just in the quiet of your own heart. What has your silence been trying to tell you that you've been too loud to hear? Maybe it's been trying to tell you to leave a situation that's hurting you. Maybe it's been trying to tell you to stay in a situation you keep wanting to run from. Maybe it's been trying to tell you that the person you think you need to become isn't who you actually are. Maybe it's been trying to tell you that the dream you've been afraid to name is actually the path you're meant to walk. The voice is there. It's been there. But every time it whispers, you turn on the television, you pick up the phone, you distract yourself. You fill the space with noise, because the truth is, silence is scary. Silence asks you to trust something you can't control. Silence asks you to release your grip on how you think life should unfold. Silence asks you to surrender, and surrender feels like death to the ego. So we avoid it. We stay busy. We stay loud. We stay safe in the chaos. But here's what I've learned in all my years of studying the mind. of working with people, of watching lives transform. The chaos isn't safety. The chaos is suffering. And the silence, the thing we're most afraid of, is actually the only place we find peace. Because here's the truth that will set you free if you let it. The silence is not passive. This is where most people get it completely wrong. They think silence is nothing. They think it's the absence of action, the void, the empty waiting room before the real answer shows up. They think silence is what happens when nothing is happening. But that's not true. That's not true at all. Silence is not passive. Silence is generative. Silence is the womb of creation. Every idea you've ever had, every solution, every flash of insight, every moment of clarity, it didn't come from noise. It didn't come from effort. It didn't come from you trying harder or thinking faster. It came from the gap. It came from the pause. It came from that moment when you stopped forcing and started allowing. Think about it. When do you get your best ideas? When do the answers finally come? It's in the shower. It's on a walk. It's right before you fall asleep or right when you wake up. It's when you've stopped trying to figure it out. It's when your mind has relaxed. It's in the silence between the striving. That's not a coincidence. That's how consciousness works. Your conscious mind, the thinking mind, the part of you that's reading these words right now, it's powerful. It's necessary. But it's limited. It can only work with what it already knows. It can only rearrange existing information. It can analyze and compare and judge and decide. But it cannot create something truly new. It cannot access wisdom beyond its own experience. But your subconscious mind, oh, your subconscious mind is limitless. It's connected to everything. It's connected to the infinite intelligence that created the stars and the oceans and the intricate perfection of a single flower. It knows things you've never studied. It sees patterns you've never noticed. It has access to solutions your conscious mind would never think to consider. And it speaks to you in the silence. The secret voice of God is always speaking in that generative silence. It's not waiting for you to get spiritual enough, or pure enough, or worthy enough. It's waiting for you to get still enough. And stillness isn't a technique. It's not something you achieve through perfect meditation or flawless practice. Stillness is a choice. It's the choice to stop filling every moment with distraction. It's the choice to trust that in the emptiness, something real will emerge. It's the choice to believe that you don't have to manufacture the answer because the answer is already there, waiting to be discovered. This is the shift. This is the transformation. You move from seeking to receiving. You move from demanding to allowing. You move from the exhausting performance of trying to get God's attention to the profound relief of realizing that God's attention has been on you the entire time. You just weren't paying attention back. Now, here's something else you need to understand, and this is crucial. Your subconscious doesn't speak in words. At least, not usually. Some people do hear words. Some people hear clear sentences or directions. But for most of us, the subconscious speaks in feeling. It speaks in knowing. It speaks in the pull towards something you can't explain. It speaks in the relief that washes over you when you stop fighting a decision. You keep waiting for a clear sentence. You want God to email you instructions. You want a voice from the sky to tell you exactly what to do, step by step, with no room for doubt. But that's not how this works. That's not how the deepest intelligence operates. Because if it gave you instructions, you'd still be operating from your limited conscious mind, following directions, playing it safe. But the subconscious wants to lead you somewhere your conscious mind would never go. It wants to take you beyond what you already know into what you're ready to become. So it speaks in feeling. And most people ignore these feelings because they're not rational. They're not logical. They don't make sense according to the rules we've been taught. But rationality is the language of the conscious mind. And the conscious mind is limited. It only knows what it's already experienced. It only trusts what it can predict and control. But the subconscious knows what's possible. The subconscious sees the whole picture. The subconscious is connected to a power that orchestrates coincidences and opens doors and brings people into your life at exactly the right moment. And when you feel a quiet yes, even when logic says no, that's the voice. When you feel peace about releasing something, even though fear says hold on, that's the voice. When you feel drawn to a person or a place, or a path for no reason you can articulate, that's the voice. Learn to trust the feeling more than the thought. This doesn't mean abandon reason. This doesn't mean make reckless decisions. It means that when you're in the silence, when you've asked your question and you've gotten still, pay attention to what you feel. Not what you think about what you feel. Not what you convince yourself you should feel, but what you actually feel. In your body. In your gut. In that deep, quiet place beneath the chatter. There's a reason we say trust your gut. There's a reason we talk about heart knowing. It's because the body doesn't lie. The mind can spin stories and create fears and project futures that may never come. But the body knows. The body feels truth. And in the silence, when you drop out of your head and into your heart, into your belly, into that centered place of being, you'll feel the answer. And you'll know. You won't be able to prove it. You won't be able to defend it. But you'll know. And here's the paradox that confuses everyone, the contradiction that makes people give up before they even begin. You're supposed to ask, but you're also supposed to let go. You're supposed to have desire, but not attachment. You're supposed to pray, but not beg. You're supposed to know what you want, but surrender the how and the when. How do you do both? How do you hold intention without gripping? How do you care deeply without needing desperately? The answer is this, and it's simpler than you think. Asking clarifies your intention. Letting go creates the space for it to manifest. When you ask and then sit in silence, you're essentially saying, I know what I want, and I trust that the intelligence within me knows how to bring it. You're not abandoning your desire. You're not giving up. You're not settling. You're entrusting it to a power far more capable than your overthinking mind. Think of it like planting a seed. When you plant a seed, you put it in the ground with intention. You chose that seed. You prepared the soil. You placed it carefully. That's the asking. That's the clarity. But then what do? You don't dig it up every day to check if it's growing. You don't stand over it demanding that it sprout on your schedule. You don't beg the seed to become a plant. You water it. You give it sunlight. And then you trust. You let go. You allow the intelligence within that seed, the same intelligence that's been creating life for billions of years, to do what it knows how to do. The silence is where you hand it over. Not in resignation. Not in defeat. Not in the bitter surrender of someone who's given up hope, but in the peaceful surrender of someone who knows they're not alone. In collaboration. You and the infinite, working together. You provide the intention, the desire, the seed. The infinite provides the process, the timing, the unfolding. But you can't collaborate if you're doing all the talking. You can't receive guidance if your hands are too full of your own plans. You can't hear the next step if you're shouting about why the last step didn't work. This is what prayer actually is. Real prayer. Not the performance of prayer, not the desperation of prayer, but the communion of prayer. It's a conversation, and in any real conversation, there has to be space for listening. There has to be silence. There has to be receptivity. Otherwise, you're not praying. You're just talking at God. You're just making demands. And demands come from fear. Demands come from lack. Demands come from the belief that you're separate from the divine, that you're on your own, that you have to convince or beg or earn what you need. But you're not separate. You never were. The voice of God isn't outside you. It's not in the sky, or in a church, or in a book. It's in you. It's the deepest part of you. It's the part of you that knows you're loved, that knows you're guided, that knows everything is working for your highest good even when you can't see it. And that part speaks in silence. Here's another truth you need to understand. God doesn't answer panic, only presence. This is so important. When you're frantic, when you're in fight or flight, when you're terrified and grasping and trying to control everything, you're in survival mode. And survival mode shuts down access to your higher mind. It's not spiritual. It's physiological. It's how your nervous system works. When you're in danger, real or perceived, Your body prioritizes immediate survival. All your energy goes to your muscles, your reflexes, your instinct to fight or run, and the part of your brain that connects to intuition, to wisdom, to that still small voice, it goes offline. It has to. Because in survival mode, you don't have time to ponder, you just react. So if you're praying in desperation, begging in fear, affirming in panic, you're not actually open. You're closed. You're braced. You're defended. And the voice can't get through because you're not in a state to receive it. Your nervous system is screaming too loudly. The secret voice only comes through when you're present, not perfect, not enlightened, not meditating on a mountaintop in blissful transcendence. Just here, just now, just willing to take a breath and trust that this moment, exactly as it is, contains everything you need to know. Presence is the doorway. Silence is the threshold. And on the other side, clarity you didn't have to earn. Peace you didn't have to manufacture. Guidance that arrives not because you were good enough, but because you were still enough. So how do you get present when you're afraid? How do you access silence when your mind is racing? You start with your breath. I know that sounds almost too simple, but your breath is the bridge between your conscious and subconscious mind. It's the bridge between your body and your spirit. It's the one thing you can control that immediately affects everything else. When you slow your breath, you slow your heart rate. When you slow your heart rate, you signal to your nervous system that you're safe. And when your nervous system gets the signal that you're safe, your higher mind comes back online. Suddenly you can hear again. You can feel again. You can know again. So in any moment of panic, in any moment of overwhelm, in any moment when you can't hear the voice and you're terrified you're making the wrong choice, stop. Just stop. Put your hand on your heart. Close your eyes if you can. And breathe. Slow, deep, intentional breath. 4 counts in, hold for 4. 4 counts out, hold for 4. Do that 3 times. Maybe 5 times. As many times as you need until you feel your body soften, until you feel your mind quiet, until you feel that shift from panic to presence. And then, from that place of presence, from that place of centered calm, ask your question. Not desperately, not demandingly, just sincerely. What do I need to know? What's true here? What's the next right step? And then be silent. Wait. Listen. Not with your ears, with your entire being. And notice what comes. A word, a feeling, an image, a memory, a sudden knowing. It might be subtle. It might be so quiet you almost miss it, but it will be there, because it's always there. You just have to be present enough to perceive it. This is the practice. This is how you train yourself to hear the voice. Not once in a while, not only in crisis, but as a way of life. You make space for silence. You prioritize presence. You treat your inner world with as much care as you treat your outer world. And over time the voice gets louder. Not because it's actually getting louder, but because you're getting better at listening. Now, I want to address something that might be coming up for some of you. You might be thinking, but Joseph, I've been hurt by trusting my feelings before. I've made mistakes. I've followed what I thought was intuition, and I ended up in pain. How do I know the difference between the voice of God and my own fear or desire or ego? This is such an important question. And here's the truth. You will make mistakes. You're human. You're learning. There's no way to get this perfect every single time, but there is a way to discern, with increasing accuracy, what's actually guidance and what's just your own noise. Here's how you tell the difference. The voice of God, the voice of your subconscious wisdom, the voice of infinite intelligence, it always feels peaceful. Even when it's telling you to do something scary, even when it's asking you to change or let go or step into the unknown, there's a quality of peace underneath it. There's a rightness, a clarity, a quiet yes that doesn't need to convince you. It just is. But fear, ego, desire, trying to masquerade as intuition, those voices are urgent. They're demanding. They're pushy. They need you to act right now, or else you'll miss out, or make a mistake, or lose your chance. They create anxiety, not peace. They create pressure, not clarity. The voice of truth is patient. It will tell you the same thing again and again, gently, consistently, without force. It doesn't manipulate. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't promise that if you just do this one thing, everything will be perfect. It just guides. Step by step, moment by moment. And there's a felt sense of alignment when you follow it. Even if it's hard, even if it's not what you wanted, there's a deep okayness. So when you're in the silence, and something comes, check it against that. Does it feel peaceful or panicked? Does it feel true? Or does it feel like what you wish was true? Does it create clarity or confusion? And if you're not sure, wait. The voice will come again. Real guidance doesn't disappear. If you don't act on it immediately, it persists. It returns. It's patient with you. And here's another layer to this. You're not creating the answer, you're uncovering it. This is so important. The answer is already there. The wisdom is already present. The path is already laid out. You're not figuring it out from scratch. You're remembering. You're revealing. You're allowing what's already true to become visible. It's already encoded in your subconscious. It's written in the intelligence that keeps your heart beating without your permission, that heals a cut on your finger without you having to think about it, that knows how to turn food into energy and energy into thought and thought into action. That same intelligence knows what you need. It knows where you're going. It knows who you're becoming. And it's been trying to show you all along. You don't have to figure it out. You have to let it reveal itself. And the way you let it reveal itself is by getting out of the way. By stopping your constant analysis and evaluation and second guessing. By trusting that you have access to wisdom far beyond your intellect. By entering the silence with empty hands and an open heart, and saying, "Show me. I'm ready. I'm listening." This is why silence works. Because in silence, there's no interference, no agenda, no performance, no trying to impress yourself or God or anyone else. Just you and the truth. And the truth, your truth, is already fully formed. You're not waiting for it. You're recognizing it. Think about it like this. Imagine you have a lake, and on the surface of this lake, there are waves. Wind blows, boats pass, rain falls, and the surface is constantly moving, constantly disturbed. And you look at this churning surface and you think, I can't see anything. I don't know what's down there. I don't know what's true. But then the wind stops. The boats move on. The rain ceases. And slowly the surface becomes still. And as it becomes still, it becomes clear. And in that clarity, you can suddenly see all the way to the bottom. You can see everything that was there all along but was hidden by the movement. That's what silence does. It stills the surface. It calms the waves. And in that stillness, you see clearly. You see what was always there. The answer. The truth. The knowing. It didn't arrive when the surface became still. It was revealed when the surface became still. There's a difference. So the question becomes, what are the waves in your life? What's disturbing your surface? What's keeping you from seeing clearly? For most of us, it's the constant consumption of information and opinion. It's the endless scroll of social media, where everyone has advice, and everyone knows better. It's the noise of a culture that profits from your confusion and your insecurity. It's the voice in your head that never stops analyzing, judging, comparing, criticizing. It's the belief that you have to have it all figured out right now. What would happen if you stopped feeding those waves? What would happen if you turned off the noise, even for a little while? What would happen if you gave yourself permission to not know, to not have all the answers, to not be certain about every single thing? What would happen if you trusted that, in the not knowing, in the uncertainty, in the silence, something true would emerge? I'll tell you what would happen. You'd hear the voice. Finally, clearly, and it would tell you things you already knew but were afraid to believe. It would confirm what you've been feeling but haven't trusted. It would show you the next step, not the whole staircase, just the next step. And that would be enough. Because here's what I've learned, and I share this with so much love. You don't need the whole plan. You don't need to see the end from the beginning. You just need the next step. And the voice will always give you the next step. Always. But only if you're listening. Only if you're in the silence. So let me give you something practical now. Let me give you some ways to actually do this. To make this real in your daily life, because wisdom without application is just philosophy. And philosophy might make you feel good for a moment, but it won't change your life. Practice changes your life. First, create a morning silence ritual. And I'm going to be very specific about this because the details matter. Before you check your phone, before you read the news, before you plan your day, before you let the world tell you who to be and what to worry about, spend 5 minutes in intentional silence. Just 5 minutes. You have 5 minutes. I know you think you don't, but you do. You'd find 5 minutes if your house was on fire. So find 5 minutes for this. Because this is just as urgent. Sit somewhere comfortable. You don't have to sit cross-legged on the floor like a monk. You can sit on the edge of your bed. You can sit in a chair. Wherever you are, just be there. Put your hand on your heart. Feel it beating. That's the infinite intelligence keeping you alive. You didn't tell it to beat. It's beating because life itself is moving through you. And that same life, that same intelligence, has wisdom for you. It has guidance. Close your eyes. Take 3 deep breaths, slow and intentional. And then, ask one simple question. What do I need to know today? Not what do I need to do? Not how do I fix this problem? Just what do I need to know? And then stop. Don't answer the question yourself. Don't start planning. Don't start thinking. Just listen. Wait. Be with the silence. And notice. Maybe you'll hear a word. Maybe you'll feel something in your body. Maybe an image will come to mind. Maybe you'll just feel peaceful. Whatever comes, or doesn't come, honor it. Trust it. Don't evaluate it. Don't judge it. Just receive it. And then, when the 5 minutes are up, open your eyes. Say thank you. To yourself. To the silence. To the intelligence within you that never stops working on your behalf. And then go about your day. But carry that sense of connection with you. Remind yourself that you're not figuring this out alone. You're being guided. Second practice, the pause between decisions. This one is powerful. Anytime you feel pressure to decide something, anytime you feel that urgency, that sense of I have to choose right now or I'll lose my chance, stop. Just stop. Because urgency is almost always fear, and fear makes terrible decisions. Take 3 deep breaths. If you can close your eyes, do it. And instead of asking, what should I do, which puts all the pressure on your conscious mind to figure it out, ask what feels true, what feels right, and then wait. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, as long as you need. And pay attention to your body. If it's the right choice, you'll feel a softening, an opening, a sense of yes. Even if it's scary, even if it's hard, there will be an alignment. But if it's the wrong choice, you'll feel a tightening, a contraction, a sense of no, even if logically it seems like the right thing, even if everyone else thinks you should do it, your body knows. Your subconscious knows. Trust it. Honor it. And here's the beautiful thing. When you start doing this, when you start consulting the silence before you make decisions, you stop making so many mistakes. You stop ending up in situations you have to escape from. You stop saying yes to things that drain you. Because you're being guided by something deeper and wiser than your surface thoughts. Third practice. Evening gratitude in silence. Before you go to bed, before you scroll your phone, or watch television, or do whatever you do to wind down, sit in silence for just a few minutes. And, mentally, quietly, thank the day. Not just for what went right, though you can do that, but thank the day for what was learned. Thank the challenges for what they taught you. Thank the silence for what it revealed, even if you didn't like what it revealed. Thank your subconscious for working on your behalf, even when you weren't paying attention. Thank the voice for guiding you, even in the moments when you didn't listen. This practice trains your mind to recognize that guidance is always present, help is always available. You're never alone. You never were. And when you go to sleep with that awareness, your subconscious continues to work through the night. It processes. It heals. It solves problems while you dream. And you wake up with insight you didn't have the night before. Not because you earned it, but because you allowed it. These practices aren't complicated. They're not meant to be. Because the truth is always simple. The truth is never hidden behind years of study or perfect technique or spiritual achievement. The truth is available to you right now, in this moment, in the silence that exists beneath all your noise. And the voice you've been searching for? It's been waiting for you in the one place you keep avoiding. The quiet. You know, there's something I want you to understand on a very deep level. Something that, if you really let it in, will change not just how you pray or meditate, but how you live. And it's this. You are not broken. You are not deficient. You are not missing some crucial piece that everyone else has. You're not behind. You're not less spiritual, or less connected, or less worthy than anyone else. You're whole. You've always been whole. The only thing that's been missing is your awareness of that wholeness. And that awareness comes in the silence. Because in the silence, all the lies fall away. All the stories you've told yourself about why you're not enough, why you don't deserve guidance, why God doesn't speak to people like you, all of that dissolves in the presence of truth. And the truth is so much kinder than you've been to yourself. The truth is that you are a beloved expression of the infinite. You are consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing this human form. You are the universe looking at itself through your eyes. And the same power that created galaxies and orchestrates the seasons, and knows how to make a caterpillar into a butterfly lives in you, as you. It's not separate. You're not waiting for it to notice you. It's already here. It's always been here. Speaking, guiding, loving, waiting only for you to be still enough to notice. So when you sit in silence, when you speak to that silence and wait for it to answer, know that you're not asking for something outside yourself to validate you. You're remembering what you already are. You're coming home to yourself. You're returning to the source of all wisdom. And that source is not out there. It's in here, in you, in the quiet depth of your own being. This is the secret that mystics have known for thousands of years. This is what saints and sages and healers have tried to tell us in every language, through every tradition, in every era. Be still and know. Be still and know that the divine is not separate from you. Be still and know that you have access to infinite wisdom. Be still and know that you are loved, you are guided, you are never alone. But we don't believe it. We think it sounds too good to be true. We think we have to earn it or prove ourselves or reach some level of spiritual maturity before we're allowed to hear the voice of God. And that belief, that one belief, keeps us suffering. It keeps us seeking. It keeps us outside ourselves, looking for salvation in books and teachers and techniques, when all along the answer was within. I'm not saying you don't need teachers. I'm not saying you don't need books or community or guidance. I'm saying that all of those things are meant to point you back to yourself. They're meant to remind you of what you already have access to. They're meant to give you permission to trust the voice within. But they can't give you the voice. It's already yours. So what are we really talking about tonight? We're talking about coming home. We're talking about the end of exile. We're talking about the moment when you stop wandering and start resting. When you stop performing and start being. When you stop demanding and start receiving. And this matters. This matters more than you might realize. Because every decision you make, every relationship you enter, every path you choose, all of it is influenced by whether you're connected to this inner voice or cut off from it. When you're cut off, you operate from fear, you grasp, you control, you manipulate, you exhaust yourself trying to make things happen, and even when you succeed, even when you get what you thought you wanted, it doesn't satisfy, because it wasn't guided by truth. It was guided by fear pretending to be wisdom. But when you're connected, when you're listening, when you're allowing the voice to guide you, everything changes. You make different choices. You say no to things that would have destroyed you. You say yes to things that transform you. You trust. You flow. You co-create with life instead of fighting against it, and there's a peace in that, a deep, unshakable peace, even in the midst of challenge and uncertainty. That peace is available to you. Not someday. Not when you've meditated enough, or healed enough, or figured yourself out. Right now. In this moment. In the silence that exists right now, even as you're listening to these words. It's here. It's always here. You just have to choose it. You have to choose the silence over the noise. You have to choose presence over panic. You have to choose trust over control. And I know that's hard. I know the ego screams when you suggest letting go. I know the mind insists that if you stop managing every detail, everything will fall apart. But that's the lie. That's the voice you've been listening to. That's not the voice of God. That's the voice of fear. And fear will always tell you that you're not safe, that you can't trust, that you have to do it yourself. But the voice of God, the voice of the infinite intelligence within you, it tells you something different. It says, you're held, you're loved, you're guided. Let go, trust, be still. I've got this. And when you finally let yourself believe that, when you finally let yourself rest in that truth, everything gets easier. Not because life stops being challenging, but because you're no longer facing it alone. Now, I want to speak to those of you who have been hurt by religion, by spiritual communities, by people who claim to speak for God but use that claim to control or shame or manipulate you. If that's you, I want you to know that I see you. I honor your pain, and I want to tell you very clearly, what I'm talking about tonight has nothing to do with that. The voice I'm pointing you toward is not the voice of an angry deity who demands perfection. It's not the voice of judgment or punishment or conditional love. It's not the voice of anyone or anything outside you that gets to decide if you're worthy. The voice of God within you is the voice of love. Period. It doesn't criticize. It doesn't condemn. It doesn't threaten or manipulate or make you jump through hoops to prove yourself. It guides. It comforts. It clarifies. It loves you exactly as you are, right now, with all your flaws and fears and failures. And it wants only one thing, for you to know yourself as you truly are. Whole. Worthy. Divine. So if the word God triggers you, let it go. Call it something else. Call it your higher self. Call it the universe. Call it consciousness. Call it inner wisdom. The name doesn't matter. What matters is the connection. What matters is that you know, beyond any doubt, that there is a source of guidance within you that is infinitely loving, infinitely wise, and infinitely available. And it speaks, in silence. I also want to speak to those of you who are in crisis right now, who are facing something that feels unbearable, who are listening to this and thinking, Joseph, I need more than silence. I need a miracle. I need intervention. I need something to change right now. And I want to say to you, with all the compassion in my heart, I understand. I've been there. We've all been there. And in those moments, silence can feel like abandonment. It can feel like you're being asked to be okay with something that's not okay. But that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is that even in crisis, especially in crisis, you take a moment to get still, because in stillness, in presence, you access a strength and a clarity that panic obscures. In stillness, you hear the next step. Maybe it's to ask for help. Maybe it's to set a boundary. Maybe it's to leave. Maybe it's to stay. But whatever it is, it will be true. It will be right. And it will come from a place of power, not panic. The silence doesn't ask you to accept the unacceptable. It doesn't ask you to stay in harm, or tolerate abuse, or pretend everything is fine when it's not. The silence asks you to get present, so you can see clearly, so you can hear truly, so you can act from wisdom instead of fear. And when you do that, when you let the silence guide you even in the darkest moments, you will be led. You will be shown. You will know what to do. I promise you that. I've seen it too many times to doubt it. The voice is faithful. The guidance is real. And it will never lead you astray. It will lead you through, which might mean through pain, through difficulty, through things you wish you didn't have to face, but it will lead you through, not around. And on the other side, you will be stronger, wiser, more yourself than you've ever been. So even in crisis, speak to the silence, especially in crisis, because that's when you need it most. Now, as we start to come to a close, I want to bring this all together. I want to give you something you can hold on to, something you can return to whenever you forget, whenever you get lost in the noise again, whenever you start to doubt whether any of this is real. Here's what we've remembered together tonight. The silence is not empty. It's full. It's full of presence, of wisdom, of love, of guidance. The voice of God is not distant. It's not in the sky, or in a building, or in a book. It's within you right now, always. And it's not speaking to you because you earned it, or because you're special, or because you finally got spiritual enough. It's speaking to you because that's what it does. That's its nature. That's how the universe works. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are not behind. You're exactly where you need to be, learning exactly what you need to learn, becoming exactly who you're meant to become. And every single step of the way you are being guided by the voice within, by the silence that knows your name. You don't need more information. You don't need another book, another course, another teacher telling you how to live. You need less. You need simplicity. You need space. You need silence. And in that silence, you will hear everything you need to know. The secret voice of God isn't mystical. It's natural. It's your subconscious mind connected to infinite intelligence, to the creative power of the universe, to the love that holds all things. And the only thing that's been blocking you from hearing it is the noise. The noise you create to avoid the truth. The noise the world creates to keep you distracted and confused and consuming. The noise of fear and doubt and unworthiness. But tonight, right now, you can choose differently. You can choose the silence. You can choose to stop performing, stop proving, stop shouting into the void. You can choose to enter the silence like it's sacred, because it is. And when you do, you will hear what's been waiting there all along. The answer, the guidance, the love, the truth. It's already yours. So here's your mantra. Say it with me, out loud if you can, or silently in the quiet of your heart. And let this become the truth you return to whenever you forget who you are and what's available to you. I am not searching for God. I am listening for God. The silence is not empty. It is full. And in the stillness, I hear everything I need to know. Say it again. I am not searching for God. I am listening for God. The silence is not empty. It is full. And in the stillness, I hear everything I need to know. One more time, and really feel it this time. Let it land in your body. Let it settle in your soul. I am not searching for God. I am listening for God. The silence is not empty. It is full. And in the stillness, I hear everything I need to know. This is your truth. This is your path. This is the way home. Not to some distant heaven, but to yourself, to the deepest part of yourself that has always known, has always been connected, has always been guided. You're remembering. That's all this is. Remembering what you forgot in the noise. And now that you remember, now that you know, everything changes. So what do you do from here? You practice. You make space for silence. You trust what you hear in that silence. You follow the guidance even when it doesn't make sense. You let go of control. You surrender to the process. You remember that you're not alone, you're not lost, and you're not in charge. There's a power within you that knows the way. And it's been trying to show you all along. If this resonated with you, if something shifted inside you as you listened, I want to hear about it. Go down to the comments right now and tell me, what is your silence saying to you? What have you been hearing but not trusting? What truth is waiting for you to acknowledge it? Write it down. Speak it into existence. Let this community witness your commitment to listening. And if you're ready to keep exploring this path, if you want to go deeper into the power of your subconscious mind, into the reality of infinite intelligence, into the practical, livable truth of spiritual law, then subscribe to this channel. Because this is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover together. So much more wisdom waiting to be remembered. And I'm here to walk with you, to remind you, to point you back to yourself again and again until you don't need the reminder anymore. If you know someone who needs to hear this, someone who's been trying too hard, searching too loudly, performing instead of being, share this with them. Send them this video. Tell them you love them. Tell them they're not alone. Tell them the silence is waiting. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for each other is remind each other to be still, to stop, to listen, to trust. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having the courage to question what you've been taught and to seek something truer, something deeper, something real. You're on the right path. You're doing the work. You're waking up. And that matters. You matter. Now go. Speak to the silence. And let it answer you. Let it comfort you. Let it guide you. Let it love you. Because it will. It always has. It always will. You just have to be still enough to hear it. And remember, you are not broken. You are not lost. You are not alone. You are whole. You are guided. You are loved. And in the silence, you will know this to be true. But let me go deeper with you now, because there's more I want you to understand about this relationship between you and the silence, between your conscious seeking and the subconscious knowing that's already complete within you. I want to talk about what happens when you start living this way, when silence becomes not just a practice, but a way of being, because that's when everything really shifts. That's when you stop using silence as a tool to get things and start experiencing silence as the ground of your very existence. You see, most people come to this teaching, to any spiritual teaching really, with an agenda, and I'm not judging that. It's natural. It's human. You come because you want something to change. You want healing. You want clarity. You want relief from suffering. You want answers to specific questions. You want your life to work better. And there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, that desire for change is what opens the door. That discomfort, that holy dissatisfaction with how things have been, that's grace. That's life calling you forward. But here's what happens that most people don't expect. You start practicing silence because you want something specific. You want to know if you should take that job. You want to heal that relationship. You want financial abundance. You want physical healing. And so you sit in silence, and you ask your questions and you wait for answers. And sometimes the answers come quickly and clearly. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes what you hear isn't what you wanted to hear. Sometimes the silence seems to say, wait, not yet, be patient. And that frustrates you because you came for solutions, and what you're getting is more mystery. But if you stay with it, if you don't give up when the silence doesn't perform on your schedule, something miraculous happens. You start to realize that the real gift wasn't the answer to your specific question. The real gift was the practice of returning to silence itself. Because in those moments of stillness, in those sacred pauses, you were touching something far more valuable than any solution to any problem. You were touching the source. You were experiencing your own consciousness. You were remembering what it feels like to exist without the constant commentary, without the endless evaluation, without the exhausting effort of trying to manage and control every aspect of your life. And once you taste that, once you feel what it's like to rest in your own being, something shifts. The questions start to matter less. Not because you stop caring about your life or your challenges, but because you realize that beneath all the questions, beneath all the problems, beneath all the uncertainty, you're okay. There's a you that's untouched by circumstances. There's a you that exists before the story starts, that will exist after the story ends. There's a you that is simply awareness itself, consciousness itself, being itself, and that you is already whole. This is what the mystics have been trying to tell us forever. This is what every spiritual tradition points toward when it talks about enlightenment, or awakening, or salvation, or liberation. It's not about getting somewhere else, or becoming someone else, or achieving some special state. It's about recognizing what you already are. It's about seeing through the illusion that you're separate, that you're alone, that you're just this small, limited, temporary person struggling through a hostile world. And silence is the doorway to that recognition. When you're silent, truly silent, not just quiet on the outside but still on the inside, you drop beneath the level of thought. You drop beneath the level of emotion. You drop beneath the level of identity and story and history and future. And you land in something that has no name, that can't be described, that can only be experienced. And in that experience, there's a knowing. Not an intellectual knowing. Not something you could write down or explain. But a felt knowing. A bone-deep recognition that you are held by something vast, something loving, something utterly trustworthy. And once you know that, once you've felt that even once, everything changes. Because now, when life gets hard, when you face loss or disappointment or fear, you have somewhere to go. Not somewhere outside yourself. Somewhere within. You can return to the silence. You can return to that ground of being. You can remember that underneath the turbulence, there's stillness. Underneath the chaos, there's peace. Underneath the questions, there's an answer so complete it doesn't even need to be spoken. This is living from the silence instead of just visiting it. And this is what I want for you. Not just a technique you use when you're desperate. Not just a practice you do for 5 minutes in the morning, but a way of moving through life. A way of making decisions. A way of relating to other people. A way of meeting each moment with presence instead of panic, with trust instead of terror, with openness instead of defensiveness. Let me tell you what this looks like practically. When you're living from silence, when you've established that connection to your inner voice as your primary orientation, you start to notice things you never noticed before. You notice when you're about to say yes to something that's actually a no. You notice when you're operating from obligation instead of truth. You notice when you're performing for someone else's approval instead of honoring your own integrity. And because you notice, you can choose differently. You'll be in a conversation, and someone will ask you to do something, and instead of immediately saying yes, because you don't want to disappoint them, or because you think you should, or because you're afraid of conflict, you'll feel a pause, a moment of space, and in that space, you'll check in. You'll tune in, you'll listen, and you'll hear a clear no, even though your mouth wants to say yes, and you'll trust it. You'll honor it. You'll say, "Thank you for thinking of me, but this isn't right for me right now." And you'll feel the integrity of that. You'll feel the alignment, and the other person might be disappointed, but you won't feel guilty. Because you'll know you spoke truth. Or you'll be facing a big decision, something that could change the course of your life, and your mind will be spinning with pros and cons and what ifs, and worst case scenarios. And you'll remember. The silence knows. So you'll stop. You'll breathe. You'll get still. And you'll ask, not from panic but from presence, what's true here? What wants to happen? And you'll wait. And something will come. A pull. A sense. A quiet certainty. And you won't be able to explain it to anyone else. You won't be able to justify it logically. But you'll know. And you'll trust it and you'll act on it. And 6 months later, a year later, you'll look back and you'll see that it was right, that the voice knew, that the silence guided you perfectly. This is the life that's available to you. Not a life without challenges or pain or uncertainty, but a life where you're not facing those things alone, where you have access to wisdom beyond your own understanding, where you're being led by something that loves you, and sees the bigger picture, and knows the way through. And here's something else that happens when you live this way. You stop needing external validation. This is huge. Most of us are so dependent on other people's opinions, other people's approval, other people's permission. We look outside ourselves constantly to see if we're doing it right, if we're good enough, if we're on the right path. And it's exhausting, and it's destabilizing. Because external validation is unreliable. People change their minds. People project their own fears onto you. People have their own agendas. If you build your sense of self on what other people think, you're building on sand. But when you're connected to the silence, when you're listening to the voice within, you have an internal compass. You have a source of knowing that doesn't shift with popular opinion, or cultural trends, or someone else's mood. And that doesn't mean you become arrogant, or closed to feedback. It means you have discernment. You can hear what others say, you can consider it, you can learn from it if it's true. But you don't need it to tell you who you are. You already know who you are. The silence has told you. And that knowing is unshakable. I've watched this transformation in so many people over the years. People who came to me anxious and uncertain, constantly looking outside themselves for answers, for reassurance, for permission to be who they are. And then they started the practice. They started making space for silence. They started listening to the voice within. And slowly, gradually, they changed. Not overnight. This isn't magic. It's practice. But over time, they became more solid, more grounded, more themselves. They stopped apologizing for their existence. They stopped contorting themselves to fit other people's expectations. They started living from their own truth. And you could see it. You could feel it. There was a presence about them. A peace. A quiet authority that came not from ego but from alignment. That's what I want for you. That's what's possible for you. And it starts with the simple, profound practice of speaking to the silence and letting it answer. Now, let me address something that might be coming up for some of you. You might be thinking, Joseph, this sounds beautiful, but I'm not there yet. I'm still struggling. I'm still anxious. I'm still confused. I try to get still, and my mind won't stop. I try to listen and I don't hear anything. I must be doing it wrong. I must not be ready for this. And I want to say to you as gently and as firmly as I can, you're not doing it wrong. There is no wrong. There's only practice. And practice means showing up again and again, even when it feels like nothing's happening, even when it feels like you're failing, even when the silence seems empty instead of full. The voice doesn't abandon you just because you can't hear it yet. The guidance doesn't disappear just because you're too agitated to receive it. It's always there, always broadcasting, always waiting. And every single time you choose to get still, every single time you turn toward the silence, instead of away from it, you're strengthening that connection. You're building that capacity. You're training yourself to listen. Think of it like learning a language. When you first start learning a new language, you don't understand anything. People speak and it sounds like noise. You can't distinguish individual words. You can't parse meaning. But you don't say, I guess I'll never learn this language, I must not be capable. No. You keep listening. You keep practicing. And gradually, slowly, you start to hear patterns. You start to recognize words, and then phrases, and then full sentences. And eventually, you're fluent. You're thinking in that language. You're dreaming in it. The language of silence is the same. At first it seems like noise, or worse, like nothing. But you keep practicing, you keep listening. And gradually, you start to hear. You start to recognize the voice. You start to distinguish between your own fearful thinking and the quiet wisdom of your subconscious, and eventually, it becomes natural. It becomes your primary way of knowing. Not your only way, but your foundation. So if you're struggling, if you feel like you're not getting it, please don't give up. Please don't decide that this isn't for you, or that you're not spiritual enough, or that you're broken in some way that makes you incapable of hearing the voice. You're not broken. You're learning. And learning takes time. It takes patience. It takes gentleness with yourself. And here's something that might help. You don't have to hear words. You don't have to have some dramatic mystical experience. The voice of the silence often speaks in the simplest, subtlest ways. It speaks in the sudden easing of tension in your body. It speaks in the sense that you can take one more breath. It speaks in the fleeting thought that crosses your mind so quickly you almost miss it. It speaks in the dream you have that night. It speaks in the book that falls off the shelf. It speaks in the friend who calls with exactly the message you needed to hear. The universe is conspiring to guide you. Always. But you have to pay attention. You have to be present. You have to notice. And that's what the practice of silence does. It trains your attention. It teaches you to notice. It opens your eyes to the 1,000 ways you're being guided every single day. Let me tell you about something I experienced years ago that really drove this home for me. I was facing a difficult decision, a choice that would affect not just me, but people I loved. And I was torn. Every time I thought I knew what to do, I'd doubt myself. I'd lie awake at night running through scenarios, trying to think my way to clarity, and I was exhausted. I was making myself sick with the effort of trying to figure it out, and one morning, I woke up and I realized I'd been doing exactly what I teach people not to do. I'd been trying to solve this with my conscious mind alone. I'd been trying to force an answer through sheer mental effort, and it wasn't working. So I stopped. I got still. I put my hand on my heart, and I said, very simply, I don't know what to do. And I'm tired of trying to know. Please show me. And then I let it go. I didn't sit there waiting for lightning to strike. I just released it and went about my day. And you know what happened? Nothing. At least, nothing obvious. No voice from the clouds. No sudden revelation. I went about my day feeling actually quite peaceful for the first time in weeks. And that evening, I was reading a book, something completely unrelated to my situation, and there was a sentence, just one sentence, and it wasn't even profound on its own. But when I read it, something clicked, not in my mind, in my body. I felt it. I felt this deep yes. And I knew what I needed to do. Not because I'd figured it out, but because the silence had shown me. Through a random sentence in a random book that I happened to be reading at exactly the right moment. That's how it works. Not always dramatically, not always obviously, but always faithfully. The guidance comes, but it comes in its own time, in its own way. Your job is not to control how or when. Your job is to ask, to listen, and to trust. And then to pay attention to your life, because your life is where the answers appear. Now I want to talk about something that might seem contradictory, but it's actually the heart of this whole teaching. And it's this. The silence is active. This is so important. When I say get still, when I say be silent, when I say stop striving, some people hear that as passive. They hear it as giving up, as resignation, as doing nothing. But that's not what this is at all. Silence is the most active thing you can do. Because in the silence you're allowing the full power of your subconscious mind to work on your behalf. And your subconscious mind is infinitely more powerful than your conscious effort. Your conscious mind can hold about 7 pieces of information at once. Your subconscious mind can process millions of pieces of information simultaneously. Your conscious mind knows what you've learned and experienced. Your subconscious mind is connected to infinite intelligence, to all knowledge, all wisdom, all possibility. So, when you get silent, when you stop trying to figure everything out with your limited conscious awareness, you're not giving up. You're activating the most powerful force in your life. You're saying to the universe, to the infinite, to the creative power within you, I trust you, I'm stepping aside, I'm letting you work. And that's when miracles happen. That's when solutions appear that you never could have thought of. That's when doors open that you didn't even know existed. That's when your life starts to reorganize itself in ways that serve your highest good. This is the paradox of spiritual life. The less you do, the more gets done. The more you surrender, the more power you access. The more you trust, the more trustworthy life becomes. It's backwards from everything we've been taught. We've been taught that more effort equals more results. That if you're not pushing, you're falling behind. That rest is laziness and silence is wasted time. But that's the lie that keeps us trapped in exhaustion and anxiety and constant striving that leads nowhere. The truth is that rest is productive. Silence is powerful. Surrender is strength. Because when you rest, when you're silent, when you surrender, you're aligning yourself with the natural flow of life. You're working with the universe instead of against it, and the universe is so much more capable than you are. The intelligence that holds galaxies in place and coordinates the migration of birds and knows how to turn an acorn into an oak tree, that intelligence is on your side. It's in you, it wants to help you, but it can't help you when you're clenched, when you're forcing, when you're trying to control every outcome. It can only help you when you open, when you soften, when you get still, when you say, I don't know, but you do. Show me, lead me, use me, let your will be done through me. That's the prayer, not the desperate bargaining of someone who thinks they're separate from God, but the humble cooperation of someone who knows they're part of God, an expression of God, a vehicle through which the divine moves and acts and creates. And when you pray that prayer, when you live from that place, your life becomes an adventure, because you're not just following your own limited agenda anymore. You're being guided into experiences and opportunities and relationships that you never would have chosen for yourself, but that are exactly what you need for your growth, for your joy, for your purpose. I've seen this in my own life so many times. The things I thought I wanted, the things I prayed for desperately, many of them didn't come. And I was disappointed. I was confused. I thought I was doing something wrong. But years later, looking back, I could see that if I'd gotten those things, I would have missed out on what was actually meant for me. I would have settled for less. I would have stayed in a smaller version of my life. The silence knew. The divine intelligence knew. And by not giving me what I asked for, it gave me something infinitely better. It gave me what I actually needed. So when the silence seems to say no, when the guidance seems to be leading you away from what you want, trust it. Trust it even when it hurts. Trust it even when it makes no sense. Trust it even when everyone else thinks you're crazy. Because the silence sees what you can't see. It knows what you don't know. It's guiding you toward your highest good, even when your highest good looks nothing like what you planned. This is the level of trust I'm inviting you into. Not blind faith, not naive optimism, but deep trust that comes from experience, from practice, from repeatedly seeing that when you follow the voice within, when you honor the guidance of the silence, things work out. Maybe not how you expected, maybe not on your timeline, but they work out. They always work out. And let me speak to this idea of timing, because it's so crucial and so often misunderstood. The silence knows timing. The infinite intelligence knows when. And when is often not now. That's hard. We live in a culture that worships speed, that demands instant gratification, that makes us feel like if we don't have it right now, we're failing. But real growth, real transformation, real manifestation, it has its own rhythm. It can't be rushed. Think about a seed. When you plant a seed, there's a period where nothing seems to be happening. The seed is underground. You can't see it. If you judged by appearances, you'd think nothing was working. You'd think the seed was dead. But underground, in the dark, in the silence of the soil, everything is happening. The seed is breaking open. Roots are forming. The structure is being built that will eventually break through the surface and become a plant. But if you got impatient and dug up the seed to check on it, you'd destroy the process. The very act of checking would kill what was trying to grow. So you have to trust. You have to wait. You have to let the invisible process happen in its own time. Your life is the same. When you plant a desire in the silence, when you give it to the infinite intelligence, there's a period of gestation. A period where it seems like nothing is happening, where you don't see evidence, where you might even think you were foolish to believe. But if you trust, if you stay faithful, if you keep returning to the silence and reinforcing your intention with your presence, with your peace, with your knowing, then in its right time it will emerge. It will manifest. It will appear in your life with a perfection and a timing that you could never have orchestrated. So don't measure your practice by immediate results. Don't judge the silence by whether it gives you what you want right now. Judge it by whether it gives you peace, by whether it connects you to something real, by whether it helps you trust, by whether it makes you more yourself, because those are the real fruits. Those are what tell you you're on the right path. And here's something beautiful. As you practice this, as you develop this relationship with silence, with the voice within, you start to become a different kind of person. You start to radiate something. People notice it. They can't always name it. but they feel it. There's a groundedness about you, a peace, a sense that you know something they don't, and they're drawn to it. You become a source of calm in a chaotic world. People come to you with their problems, and they leave feeling better, even if you didn't say much, even if you didn't have answers, because what they needed wasn't advice. What they needed was to be in the presence of someone who's connected, someone who's still, someone who's listening to something deeper, and that presence is contagious. It reminds them that it's possible, that there's another way to live. This is how the practice of silence becomes service. Not because you're trying to fix anyone, not because you're preaching or teaching or convincing, but because you're being who you truly are, and in that being, you give others permission to remember who they truly are. You become a mirror, a reminder, a doorway. And that's the highest service. That's the real work. Not doing more, but being more. Being more present, more peaceful, more connected, more real. And I want to say this to you very clearly. This is not about perfection. This is never about perfection. You're going to have days where you forget, days where you get caught up in the drama and the noise and the fear, days where you react instead of respond, days where you ignore the voice and do what you want anyway and then regret it later. That's okay. That's human. That's part of the process. The practice is not about never making mistakes. The practice is about returning. It's about remembering. It's about coming back to the silence again and again, no matter how many times you wander away, because the silence is always there, always waiting, always ready to receive you, never judging, never condemning, just welcoming you home. This is unconditional love. This is grace. This is what the divine feels like when you stop trying to earn it and start allowing yourself to receive it. And it's yours. Right now. In this moment. Always. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, be still. Be present. Be open. And trust the voice within. It knows the way home.